Welcome to The Stacks, a podcast about books and the people who read them. I'm your host, Tracy Thomas. I am thrilled today to welcome Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham to The Stacks. They are the co-editors of Black Futures, which was one of my most favorite books from 2020. In addition to working together on Black Futures, Kimberly is the author of This Is What I Know About Art and an activist and curator. Jenna is a staff writer at the New York Times Magazine and the co-host of my favorite podcast, Still Processing. We talked today about the collaborative process and the tenderness and trust that Kimberly and Jenna cultivated to create Black Futures. Reminder, the Stacks Book Club for January is The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans, and we will discuss the book on Wednesday, January 27th with Disha Filia. Before we get to the episode, here are some super quick reminders for all of you if you want to show the Stacks some love. Be sure to tell everyone you know about the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review to the show wherever you're listening right now. Truly, you can write your review right now while you listen. Follow the Stacks on social media at the Stacks Pod on Instagram and at the Stacks Pod _ on Twitter. And be sure to shop through the links in our show notes and frequent our sponsors like HelloFresh. Last and most important, join the Stacks on Patreon and become a member of the Stacks Pack. That's a group of people who love the show and contribute monthly so that I can continue to create the podcast you love. In exchange for their generosity, they earn my unyielding respect and appreciation, and they get perks like discounts on merch, access to our virtual book club, and a shout out on the show. Here are some of our newest members of the Stacks Pack: Abby Toner, Little Sparrow, Ellen Inman, Elizabeth Tulsky, Andrea Bryant, Abby Bertrand, Nava, Rachel Falcon, Colleen, and Courtney Stafford. Thank you all so much for continuing to show the Stacks love. There would be no show without the Stacks Pack. If you want to join the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. Okay, now it's time for the show. All right, everybody, I am beyond thrilled today to have the two editors of one of my most favorite books of 2020, Black Futures. I have Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham. Thank you both so much for being here and welcome to the Stacks.
Thank you so much for having us. It's very exciting to have an opportunity to talk with you about the book.
I feel the same way. So we'll just dive in about 30 seconds or so. Can you sort of tell us about the book?
Ooh, I love this pop quiz. Let's see. We've got a thick book, 500 plus pages, a matte black cover, black holographic letters on the front side. And, you know, it's just a really incredible visual anthology of essays, artist statements, works of art, social media moments we've archived, recipes, essays. I mean, if you name it, it's probably in there, more or less.
Very well done. I feel like you passed the pop quiz. I think most of my questions are about how you two worked together and how you work together. And I know in the book, one of the first things we see after the introduction is a artist rendition of a text message or Instagram DM or some sort of messaging between the two of you, sort of meeting online. And now, because I follow you both on social media and I'm, big fans, I know that you guys are so close to one another and you're dear friends. And so I'm curious, what's it like building a personal relationship with someone that you're also building a professional relationship with simultaneously and still finding and working in that space of love? Because I think for a lot of people, when you work professionally, it's different. And when you work personally, it's different. And you two kind of built that at the same time. So I'm just very curious about that.
I'm happy to talk about it. I think at the end of the day, it's really about integrity and fortitude and a mutual investment in the person that you're working with. For both of us, our friendship started with the book. It was really Jenna reaching out to me back in 2015. I'm like, I've lost all track of time. Back in 2015, I'm already failing my pop quiz portion of the test. And being really vulnerable and saying, I want to create a project together, inspired by a lot of the things that I'm seeing and maybe some of the things that you might be seeing. Let's have a conversation about what that might look like. And over time, it became, of course, about that project. It became, of course, about archiving Black life and reaching out to Black practitioners to create this, resulting book that could speak to this incredible moment that we were witnessing both online and off. But in every morsel and every kind of like nook and cranny of the project was us sitting together and talking and checking in and making sure that sometimes they were business meetings and sometimes they were conversations about beans. Sometimes they were conversations about family. I think it for us was really about making sure that when we finished the book that we would be able to celebrate together. And I think that that's something that's really like of many pieces of advice that I would give to anyone embarking on a project with someone else is that, there is, of course, finishing it. There are, of course, deadlines. There are, of course, expectations. But I think especially now, almost a month after publication, or definitely a month after publication, it's been such a gift more than anything else to be able to talk to Jenna about the joys and the difficulties that continue through creating a project and pulling off something at this scale. Because it is really hard. And I actually I couldn't imagine trying to accomplish something at this size with this intention without, partnership from Jenna. And then also just this incredible community of people who are in the book, those who are mentioned and those who aren't, who are really so much a part of this process. I was just in one of my many amazing group chats with some of my homegirls who are curators, and we're talking about what's going on in the art field. And it's just, you need those spaces as a human to be able to pull off these things that somehow we deem as non-human. But I think that for us, it was destroying that binary and saying today I need to work, today I don't need to work. And every day we know that we want to make sure that we both exit this project in the best, care and condition possible.
That's just so, it's really lovely to hear, but it's also sort of revolutionary because it's so different than I feel like a lot of people work, especially when there's deadlines and there's pressure and there's a thing that comes out of it, right? You knew that there would be a physical thing that you would be responsible for, and holding on to that is just, it's powerful to just hear that. I'm curious also how you divided the actual work of it. Was it something really specific where it was okay, Jenna, you're going to reach out to the people who are doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to reach out to the people doing this. Or was it more Kimberly and Jenna together knocking on doors and bumping into friends and being send us a picture or write this essay, or, how did you guys divide? And I guess there's another question in there, I think maybe, because I'm not sure how you actually worked on the book, but did you set out with an outline that said, we're going to hit these 12 points? Or was it just, let's reach out and then fill in the blanks? We don't have anything about the ocean, or we don't have any recipes about, coconut sweetbread. We're missing things. How did you guys sort of divide the actual work, and how did you decide what you wanted in or out? That's a lot, I know.
No, it's great. I love how rangy of a question it is, because there's so many ways to talk about the process, and it's nice to retrieve those memory files. What were we doing way back then? I'm still thinking about everything Kimberly shared about how we came to be friends and work together on a project for so many years. And I do think one of the things that helped us was defining our business relationship really early on. And so we relied on a lawyer named Quinn Hardy, who drew up a business agreement for us that basically stipulated we would always, consult each other before we made big decisions. And I think that was really helpful because it just required action, not reaction. It required us to be very deliberate about how we were going to handle things, and that we were always going to check in before responding to the publisher, or if we got a really exciting, query or inquiry, or if we ran into a snag, we always tag teamed it. And so I think that helps to kind of answer your question. So that really was one of the first things we did, in addition to forming our LLC and just realizing that we wanted to really, have the business and then have the friendship, right? And not pretend that there could be no boundary between the two, that we really knew we needed to kind of delineate that. And it made it easier, right? When we step into that role, we're stepping into the business role. And then when we have our all night, not anymore, but when we would be like, we're going out, we're having a meeting, we're doing our thing, like it could just be us having a hang. But all to say, we definitely did have an outline, although I'm trying to remember what was on it or who was on it. I have no idea. We had things, we had themes, we had artists, we had ideas that we were interested in. I think when we sold the book, there was this idea that, Kimberly would deal with the art and I would deal with the writers, but we let them think that, but that was not at all our intention. We both have such rangy interests and, we both are writers. We both, are purveyors of art. We both think about the world in these uniquely dynamic ways. So we weren't going to limit ourselves in terms of who could do what. I mean, the book was supposed to explode the notions of that, especially for both of us. I think we were at points in our career where we wanted to try totally different things, and pulling a book together was part of that. And so we were just really free to approach it, approach the pieces that were in it in whatever way made sense. But a lot of it was, Kimberly and I would be sending each other screenshots, or we would be in an art, exhibition and taking in an image of something we'd seen. And what do you think about this? Or going to look at work together, and a lot of back and forth. And, earlier Kimberly mentioned, tapping into community. We had many meetings with cohorts where we were like, what do you think should be in the book? Or what do you expect? Or what do you, when we say Black futures, what comes to mind? And then, incorporating some of that and really integrating it, because we also realized that we wanted the book to feel like us, but also of this moment. And so we needed, as many eyes and ears on it as possible. And so that was a huge part of our process as well. And it just, it's weird because we really did spend so much time on it. And so it really did take 3 years to pull it together, because, the world was evolving and the world was shifting. And there was at one point where, Kimberly had gone to TED and come back super energized. Like, oh my God, I've met, Ayanna Johnson, who wrote the essay on ocean justice as climate change.
So
and,
good.
Just this incredible, right. And so there was so much of the way we were growing and evolving, and our tentacles were emerging into the world, that we were touching new things and brushing up against new things. And so I think we were growing at the same pace as the book in some ways. And I think the material reflects that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to add, but I'll stop for that, because that feels right for right now.
Kimberly, did you want to add anything? Or
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just there's an incredible amount of trust, and it kind of started from day one. And I think that speaks to the importance of making sure that you're working with someone that you want to learn from. And I think for us, there's so many moments, like even this week we were having like business chat, and there's 2 people that we're working with right now that kind of have the same name. And so we've been mixing them up, and I've gone on like full tirades about what I want to do. And Jenna isn't like exactly sure about who I'm talking about, but just listening and listening and listening until I get to my point. And there's so little judgment, and so just like this openness. And I got to the end of this conversation with Jay, and I was just like, you had no idea what I was talking about, or like who I was talking about, but you just listened to me, and we got to where we needed to go. But there's so many other environments that I've been in, and I know so many of us, because of course every writer or creative has like this multiplicitous life. It's very like Clark Kent, like Superman. But to be able to have someone who's just kind of like, all right, we're going to go on this like narrative road together. I know that there's morsels here, and I'm going to trust that you're listening to this thing that I want to include, or this thing that I want to see. And in return, I'm going to listen to the things that you want to see, and we'll get to what the final decisions are together. But it really is like from the very inception of it has been this incredible trust exercise. And I think with some distance, I just think so much about the vulnerability that both of us kind of had to exert to do this larger thing. Like the juicy thing was this book, but there was so much before that, that we just really had to trust the process. And that came from having a lot of support. But that also came from like on the inner workings, just listening to each other, letting each other finish each other's sentences. And I think for so many, especially like femme-identified folks, we just don't get opportunities to finish our fucking sentences. And so it's nice to find a collaborator who's just kind of like, I don't know which person you're talking about, but I'm going to listen, and we're going to get where we're going, because nothing is more important than making sure that we're on the same page.
I love that. I want to add one thing too, which is just to this note of trust, if that's okay, Tracy.
Of course.
Okay. I also really loved in our process the way we would bring things to the other one. And I can't say that every single time we presented the other one with an idea, the other person was totally on board or totally sold. But I feel like the answer was always like, let's try it. You know, like, I don't love that, but I'll be curious to see how it looks in the book, you know? And I think that also the trust in our intuition and our instincts is rare. You know, it's rare in the world at large. It's rare. I mean, it's rare for me in my main place of employment. And so I think just being like, let's just try it and see if it works, and not being afraid to be like, this didn't actually turn out, or got cut, and keep it pushing. And so that felt really generous and generative as well. Like, it just felt fun to play.
I'm so glad that you did add on and say that, because my next question was sort of about how did you deal with disagreements or difference of vision, but I think that sort of answers that question, so I won't even harp on that. I am curious, Jenna, I think you brought it up when you're talking about both of you evolving and changing and having experiences and then wanting to include those types of things in the book or meeting people or whatever that was as you grow from 2015 to 2020 when the book is finally released into the world. How did you sort of, I guess, I don't know. I mean, we are sitting here the first week of January. There's just been this crazy, terrorist insurrection on the Capitol, yesterday. And it feels like, oh my gosh, we need a tweet about this in the book. And it feels like, I'm sure since you turned in your book for your final edits and when it came out, 30 things happened that you maybe wanted to include. So how did you protect or future protect, or how were you taking care of the book to feel like when it came out, you would still feel really great about what you did? Or was that a struggle at all? Or did you just say, look, it's in the book. We know it's there. We did the work. Like, how do you balance? I just know that I'm so neurotic that I would be like, oh my God, this thing happens. I need to take it back from the printer, like a nightmare. So I'm just curious how you navigated that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say one thing about my relationship with Kimberly that I love is that, while the chaos is unfolding, we were texting about something so sublime. And I was like, the world is burning and like all is well on this text thread. And Kimberly was like, la, 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 or something back. And it was just so great. I was like, this is so joyful. But yeah, I think it was hard to future-proof the book. I think it was our hope, but I'll just say my hope was that, the pieces in the book would speak to these larger existential questions about what it means to be Black and alive, that a single tweet, of course, can capture a moment, right? But, won't reflect the totality of, or maybe contextualize something. I mean, it's so hard because what happened this week, I don't even know how we would have begun to grapple with that, right? And thinking about how to archive it if we want to, I mean, I don't think we would have, but I do think, one thing that's coming up as you're asking this question is I remember we were doing the final edits for this book during the uprisings of the summer. And that was just beyond hard to show up and just do any kind of work when the world was literally falling apart and we were fearing for our lives and, trying to figure out how to show up in fuller ways, even as we were so exhausted and taxed and living in a pandemic. But there was this image that was surfacing, and I'm trying to remember who the photographer was. I won't. But anyway, there was a really incredible image going around of some of the protests from Minneapolis. And I was like, I wonder if we can try to squeeze this in. And Kimberly was like, you know what? We could. And it'll drive the publishers crazy. It'll drive everybody insane because we've already done so much work on the layout. But I don't think we need to because it's already there, right? Like, this image is a continuation of this broader liberation movement that we're talking about in so many ways in the book. And the fact that the book is going to come out, it'll be birthed into the aftermath of this already speaks to the urgency of some of the materials in the book. And I also remember one of the last pieces we procured was this incredible work by Hank Willis Thomas that I'd seen when it was up at the Jack Shaman Gallery of, repurposing this pamphlet called How to Survive a Police Riot. And it's got all this information about stockpiling dry goods and how to learn about CPR and all these different things. And, there was a lot of debate about whether or not we should include it in the book because it had to be included in its totality. It's required many pages. It was a very big spread comparatively to the other spreads. And it's not even really representative of Hank's work overall, right? And like what he does. But it felt really important. It felt urgent. And when we first started doing book tour press, it was the thing people referenced the most. And so it was really interesting to think about this work that made its way into the book. That anyway, it's just interesting. Like people were like, damn, we didn't know we needed a pamphlet that, Hank Willis Thomas fished out, repurposed from the 70s, put it up on a, gallery wall in 2019. And here we are in 2020, like needing the information in these pamphlets. Right. So it's funny how the things kind of cycled back, and it felt timely. Unfortunately, it all felt timely.
Yeah. I love everything you said, Jenna. I think the only thing that I would add that I think is definitely one of the other ethos throughout this project, and one that I think is really important for those who are publishing, especially in relationship to marginalized groups, is what you were saying earlier about being active and not reactive. Because in many ways, of course, you want to future-proof it. You want it to be something that can speak to a global audience for all time. But at the same time, you also, as an editor, have to say, this is urgent. This is important. This is valuable. And it might not be life or death to talk about Black Sim community, but the Black Simmers should be recognized and should be forefronted, and these images should be included. And the issues, especially that relate to Black life, don't always have to be, in this very exact moment, because unfortunately we see this like terrible way in which there's this circular kind of way that issues arise again. I think one of the most dystopian things about this summer was going out and saying the same chants that we've been saying since 2016 in this completely different context, but for these exact same reasons. And for this, the same exact things are going to come to fore. You see Jacob Blake's assailants not being persecuted, and that is just what we know. And so it's really important, I think, for any editor, for any, especially too, like I think even in the magazine world or in the periodical, I sound like such a dinosaur, but thinking about like the news, you have to think more holistically about what is of value and what is worth retaining. And that doesn't always have to be in the moment, or the story that cropped up to the top, or the story told by this specific voice. You have the agency with every publishing venture to make decisions about how you want to craft what you want people to have. And I think for us, there's so many beautiful moments where, the family recipes or things like this, where it's like, no, I actually really think it's so important for a photograph of Raheem Fortune's grandmother to be in the book. And of course, there's other photographs that could be in the book, but that's one of my favorite ones because it shows this like intergenerational dialogue. And that is so valuable as something to take forward. And being able to trust that instinct as an editor is why it's like worth all the work of making a book. Like I don't want to ever do a project that takes this much energy and life force that I can't look at it and say, this is how I wanted to do it. And I think that is something that is just not afforded to marginalized people enough. And so fucking make the book you want to make. That's what we did.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I have chills. I love so much. I loved the book so much. And so hearing you talk about it and hearing you talk about what it was to create it is really moving to me because I felt so many things reading it. And one of the things I really want to make a point to say to you and also to anyone listening is that while the book does focus or have, it starts sort of with Black Lives Matter, and it does have a lot of the stuff that's right in everyone's mind right now, the protests and all of that, there is so much joy and beauty and tenderness in this book in a way that feels truly like what it is to be Black. And when I read it, I felt that way. And when I think about it, I feel that way. And when I pull it off the shelf just to reference something, I feel that way because while there's so much struggle, or I've experienced struggle, and I know I'm not alone in that as a Black American, and I'm sure a Black person in the world, there's so much joy and tenderness and humor and beauty in Blackness. And I think you all pulled off that part in a way that I've never seen done before, in a way that felt so holistic and so just overwhelming in like a good way, that overwhelming where you're just like, it kind of washes over you. And I don't know, there's not a question there. It's just kind of a thank you for doing that. And because I can hear in what you're both saying, your process that was important to you. And I think you did it. And And then I'll just kind of tack on this little tiny thing, which is that, Jenna, I love still processing so much. And one of the reasons why I love still processing is because you and Wesley make me think about things that I have maybe thought about, but not been able to articulate. And I can't remember exactly what episode it was, but I remember you both talking about the white gaze and science fiction and about, I think maybe about Moonlight and how maybe it was one of the first movies that didn't have the white gaze. And then you sort of went back and were like, no, there's a white gaze there. And I think about that all the time when I think about Black art now. And I do feel like this book is one of the first times I've experienced the removal of the white gaze in a way that felt really complete to me. And so I just want to put that out there as someone who knows that that's maybe something that you've thought about and talked about, is that I don't know. I can't, it's hard to even put it into words. I don't know. But when I think about like the justice section specifically, I think when I turned the page, I was like, oh, this is going to be about what people think justice looks like. And instead, it was very much what justice feels like and what justice can be and what opportunity and what the future of justice was. And all of that, I think, is what makes your book really special to me. And there's no question. It's just a long sentence, I guess, a run-on sentence.
Oh, we appreciate that. No, one of the best parts of the book being out in the world is just hearing people's reaction to it and how it felt, right? Because we've spent so much time immersed in it that we've almost dissociated from that experience because we know it so intimately. So it's really incredible just to hear, you know, what the texture is like to you. So that's really special. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well. And I think for us in this journey, from the very beginning, we were really interested in that interaction and the way that people would read it. And I've said this, Jenna's heard me say this multiple times, but I feel like every other time I've said it, I've just been like, well, duh, of course, like you want to think about your reader. But I think for us, it wasn't just this like intellectual exercise. You know, it was really about building something that could be alongside so many of us. You know, like I, you know, obviously we're the editors, but I feel like Black Futures is a gift also to myself. And I hope that it registers as a gift to others, which is why it's so fun that it came out during like the whole mess of a holiday season. But to be able to see that exchange of gifting and people, you know, surprising people with it or buying it for themselves. Like there were so many people who were like, I know you might get me this book, but I got it for myself. You know, like those things. I was just like, yes. Like I sent some people, like one of my favorite songs is this Webby song called Independent. And it's just like the most beautiful like Southern hip hop song. And it's just like, I would just send that back to folks where I was just like, yes, like you got your own book, like do your thing. Like this is for you. And it's designed that way. And I think for both of us, like in my past life at the Metropolitan Museum, and I know in Jenna's life at the Times, there's so many ways that, especially as Black folks within institutional structures, there's an expectation that we almost always are surrendering to the larger mission of the institution. And I think that the most powerful people are those who can work on those stages and then also think about people who are like them, who might not be in those hallowed halls, who might not be on the pages, who might not be, you know, recognized or overly recognized or historically remembered and enshrined in the archives of those institutions. But thinking about how we can take those tools to build something that can do that work. Because it is something that's so precious and so like, it's just so natural as well. Like I've talked, you know, in my family, we have all these many, many varied ways of collecting ourselves. But like today I was looking through family photos, thinking about cookbooks, thinking about these different practices that we've had. And what could it mean to do that for ourselves on our own behalves and in the interest of ourselves? Because it's just not something that we're afforded. We're all sold this dream of like, you get your degree or whatever, and then you end up at this institution or whatever, and then you make a ton of money or whatever, and like you won. And that's the prize. Like, that's not the prize. The prize is maintaining your integrity, maintaining your courage, maintaining your connection with those who you're interested in serving, and being in solidarity with. Like, that's the point, because otherwise you're just in some, like, this is just me ranting now, but otherwise you're just in some like weird rat race, you know, like just stroking your ego with other people who also make books, you know, like, fuck that. Like, I don't think that that's what it is. It's really that moment where it's like, we've had so many incredible conversations where it's just like, I loved it. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. Like, I love it too. Let's talk about why we love it. And it doesn't have to be like $15 words to talk about it.
Right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Valentine's Day is upon us and I've got love on the brain. Love for books. Duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to tracythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. I want to know, was there ever a different title?
Ooh, I don't think so.
No,
Like
Jenna,
that was...
Okay.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I was like, Jenna said Black Features, and I said yes. But I'm curious if you had other titles, because I would say yes.
No, I mean, I think we'd been calling it the Black Features Project because we didn't know what form it was going to take. And then when we sat down with Chris Jackson, who's our publisher at One World, it just felt like, yeah, that's the title. Like, it just felt so known. This is what it is.
Okay. We're going to shift a little bit. I have some really important questions that you probably haven't been asked yet, I hope, but they're very important to me and I care deeply about your answers. So the first one is, what is a word that you can never spell correctly on the first try?
Apothecary. I already know. I don't say it right half the time anyway. I already know because I say it all the time on the pod and they have to stop and be like, apothecary. And I'm like, okay, let's try it one more time. And I never get it right.
It's so hard. In 2020, I recorded 3 audiobooks and I got into so many battles with our audio engineers about how words are pronounced. And I was just like, this is kind of white supremacist to me, but let's go. I'm trying to think. There's so many words. I think constituents has been getting me recently.
Ooh,
because there's some cute vowels up in there. And when you're texting it really fast and trying to sound smart with friends, you tell on yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I also want to know how you sort of work more, like literally what's it like when you're working? Where are you? How often are you working? Do you have music? Do you have ritual, candles, snacks, beverages? Kind of set the scene. Are you two together? Are you separate working on this book? Sort of like, what was the vibe?
We were together for a lot of it in the beginning. We would meet up on the weekends. We would frequent, a Black-owned business in our neighborhoods, and we would have a meal. We might have a glass of wine. We might, sit and bring our laptops and have coffee and work. And then I think as the work started to elongate, we started working on our own timeline so we could work, at our own schedules. And then I think for me, some of the things that I love for working, in my apartment, in my kitchen, I have an open kitchen. So I like being really close to food. I like being close to my kombucha, which I make. I like being close to my assortment of seltzers and the bitters that I put in them, which I like to drink while I'm working. I need to be near my popcorn. I'd like to be near my toast, my teas. I'm definitely someone who processes by movement. So I go out for walks a lot of the times when I'm thinking through things. Like I was a little late because I just came back from a walk, and talking with an editor. So, and there's always music playing in the background. And I do remember this one time I was listening to the Twilight soundtrack and Kimberly was like, why is the music from TikTok playing? And I was like, because I also was listening to on TikTok earlier, and people were using the soundtrack, and now I'm listening to it to get out of my head. But that was just one. Normally it's like, I love jazz. I love a Robert Glasper moment. I love Kelsey Lou. I love listening to the old SZA album, which still slaps for me. Like, it's easy music to work to for me.
I love that you're a snacker. I love a snack. So any fellow snacker is very welcome in this space.
There is no way to make great art without a snack. I have a similar kind of beat. I really like to listen to music. I'm way on the higher BPM scale, so I usually find like mixes on SoundCloud. I follow Poppy Juice, our dear friends, on SoundCloud, and they post new mixes all the time. Discwoman posts who are in the book also post amazing mixes from DJs. But I love just like a cumbia, or just like some like Brazilian Afro beat from like the middle of wherever. Like, that is my joy. Or finding something new. Like, I'm an avid Spotify user, and so finding some new mix, like I'm consistently making playlists. And then I like to work in short bursts, and I like to work early in the day, which Jenna has been really accommodating with. But I'm like, can we start at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m.? Because if you call me at 2, you have like a solid half an hour before it turns into macaroni and cheese. Like, it's just gushy and it's still delicious, but it's maybe not, a full meal. And so, yeah, it's definitely early and loud for me.
And what are your snacks?
Oh, yeah.
I need to know about your snacks.
My snacks, I love an almond. I love fruit. I'm a big fan of Cheez-Its. If you're listening, please sponsor me, because I keep Cheez-Its in heavy rotation. And then water, of course.
Lots of water.
We love water.
Okay. We'll get back to the book, but those are the things that I not that I don't deeply care about your book, but I deeply care about snacks in a way that is inappropriate.
It's all
there's not. I'm going to make this coconut sweetbread. I'm doing Whole30 right now, which is probably a mistake. But when I'm done, I'm making that coconut sweetbread. I've been thinking about it. I keep looking at the recipe. I do want to know, this might be against the rules, so you just tell me no. Do you have favorite things in the book right now? I'm sure it changes or changed, but are there things, maybe not favorite, but just things that you're ruminating on in this moment, whatever that is for you?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I spent time over the past few days watching this incredible breathwork video that Sade Foxy, who's in the book, made. And so I've been thinking a lot about Sade this week, which is cheating. But yeah, I was actually thinking, I was like, the new year has started. It is time to open the book for the first time in 2021. And I admittedly have not. Because I'm still just like, whoa, that is a thing that we did. And I still feel very extraterrestrial about it. But for right now, I think I'm thinking about Sade and thinking especially about like bathing. I've been bathing a lot. I got this like really beautiful THC bath salts. And so it's just like gets your like all my muscles relaxed and stuff. It's like the closest I'm going to get to a hot springs for a minute. But I've just been thinking, because there's this really beautiful meditation that Sade wrote in the book that's about self-love and bathing yourself. And so that's top of mind. Jenna, what's yours?
I was actually thinking a lot about Chef Kia Damon, at Kia Cooks on Instagram and Twitter, who included, the other recipe in our book, or one of the other food recipes in our book about fried pig ears. And even though I haven't made that recipe, I really, really love the way Kia has been doing these short bursts on Instagram of things you can make at home, and TikTok too. But there was one for Creole chicken that I really want to make. And, Kimberly put this bug in my ear about just cookbooks as being this incredible archive that we don't really talk about as archives or talk about enough as archives. And I think I've been really fixating on that and thinking more about, cooking to me is such a pleasure. And I'm such a the workday is done. I want to be in my kitchen. It's like the one time that's like when my BPMs go up. I'm like playing dance music. I've got a beverage in my hand. It might be tea. It might be seltzer and bitters. It might be wine. It might be leftover Prosecco like it was last night. and that's really my zone. And I've been thinking a lot about how much I do care about what I'm cooking, and it feels so good. Like I've got this new recipe for Shiro by Hawa Hassan, who's got this incredible cookbook called Bibi's Kitchen. And she has this recipe for this, Eritrean Shiro which is like a chickpea stew in the book. And I'm just like, I want to make that. I want to be connected to the women who made that recipe. And so it's been something that's been on my mind too, in terms of Kia's recipes, like how connected I do feel to myself when I feel most Southern and Black when I'm in the kitchen with a drink in my hand. So those are the recipes. I want to make Pierre's recipe as well. So I've been thinking a lot about that coconut bread. I actually just bought some coconut. So maybe
okay,
it's going down this weekend. I will.
I want to know. Okay, we've talked a lot about all the lovely, wonderful parts of working together and making this book. I'm curious, what was the hardest part of the book? What was the thing that you grappled with the most? What was the challenge? What was the part where you were going to each other being like, ah?
How much time do you have? No, I think the difficult thing for anyone who's out there interested in embarking on a book project to know is that you are really embarking on a business endeavor, and no one tells you about that. Even if you're the only person who's writing a book, you're still thinking about how to balance, work life, because book advances are great, but it's not always enough to float your life. And then also the taxes on it. I think that the adulting process of the book making was very, very humbling. And then of course, deadlines. Like I think for both of us, I think I might say we're both used to being on publishing schedules and writing essays or contributing to catalogs or working in some way with others and, maybe doing public speaking. But with a book, there's a different pace where it's like we turned in the book a few times and then we had to go through edits, and there's a lot of like hurry up and go. That's really very foreign when you're used to working on a different publishing schedule, and not necessarily good or bad, but acclimating to that was definitely like, oh my gosh, and it was nice to have another person going through it to be like, this is hard for you too, right? Like today is a hard day, right? And getting that confirmation, because it definitely was, there were some weeks where it was just like, if I get one more email about something that needs to get turned around tomorrow,
Yeah, I think I would agree with all of that. I mean, I do. I agree with all of that. I think for me, what was hard was learning how to trust that we could advocate for ourselves. Like it was okay at some point to say, this pace is not sustainable, or we need more heads up because we're not on book leave. Like we're juggling multiple responsibilities. We've got multiple hats that we wear, multiple pairs of shoes we put on every week. And yeah, we need to know when things are coming. And I think that was really scary. It's hard to assert yourself in any industry and feel like that's okay, and learning how to become a better communicator. I'm a workaholic in recovery. I can actively say that. And so I'm learning, how to have healthier boundaries around me time versus work time, because, like Kimberly, I'm also an early riser, but I have really hard rules around when I look at my phone in the morning. Like I have a whole lot of things I do before I turn my phone back on. And that's I've had to rewire my brain to work that way, because I'm just way too burnt out and way too depleted and way too, really trying to bounce back from just years of overuse. So I'm trying to rehydrate my roots. I'm trying to get it back together, deep condition these split ends. I'm trying to really recalibrate. And I think with the book, it just was such a different art form and such a different entity that it was hard to be like, yeah, even though the scale is different, this is a scale of years, not a day. It's still okay to be like, this pace doesn't work for me. And that was, I'm so glad we learned how to do that.
I'm glad that you learned how to do that too. It's hard. That's hard shit. The way that the book looks, I want to talk about that for just a little bit, because the cover is so beautiful. It's so when you see it, it's like, whoa, this is great. But inside is really beautiful. And you have different colored pages that are sort of coordinated to different topics or forms or ideas. And, there's if you haven't read the book yet, in the bottom left, there's authors' writers and contributors' last names and the page number that their work is on that coincides with whatever the page is that you're looking at. And it's sort of like this maze, and you can read it forward or backward, and you could read it from the middle out, or you could read it however you want. And so I'm curious how that part of it came to you all and how you all worked on that and it's different. So I'm curious what that vision was.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think this is a very good time to shout out our design team, Marcos Key. They're an incredible team of designers, younger, who we went out to and were like, we have this project and we really want you to be on board. And they came back to us after getting kind of like our proposal and some bits of what we were doing with 3 different directions that we're all really interested in, kind of like the visual language of archiving. And the one that we ended up going with, which is the one that you see, is really interested in like a web interface, but not being too like, not overly Y2K millennial energy, but really trying to think about, what are some of the things that you might see in the web and how could that also be in conversation with several spreads that include social media posts and trying to keep that energy, but then also having more analog territories, text of varying sizes. But it was really the guidance of our designers to make something that could be what we hope is really legible to folks who are navigating through the book. Because as you could imagine, there's so much in the text. And we really just kept collecting and had all these meetings where either our editor or someone else was just like, there has to be some sort of organizing principle. And it was really through that collaborative effort that we were able to come to build out this kind of system for how to make all the pieces kind of come together in this puzzle.
Yeah. I mean, I think you did point out one of the features that we really love, or, that feel really, integral to the experience of that we hope people will have with the book, which is the related entries feature. And the idea that you can just let the book guide you through itself feels really powerful and really non-hierarchical as much as it can be for a book that is laid out front to back. But just allowing people to have their own experience of the material felt key. Like, we really didn't want to privilege formats or contributors or ideas. We just wanted people to be able to fall through it and allow things that interest them on the page, take them off the page, and then back into the book as well. And I hope people are experiencing it that way. I mean, I do when I read it. Like, I'm doing that even now as a reader, that I use the related entries, and then I like see stuff and I highlight it and I'm like, let me Google that later. And that feels right.
So much Googling. I did so much Googling. I try not to be on my phone when I'm reading, but I was like on my phone so much, it was difficult for me because as someone who spends a lot of time reading, I'm like, don't be on your phone because you're going to get distracted. But I was like, I need to know what this is. I need to see their other work.
No, you're doing it right. Okay. You're doing it right. I think we have to really break down that strange choreography that is insisted upon us and how we encounter text. Like, take the time. I mean, of course, like, this is barring maybe the students. But if you're engaging with the text and there's a word or a theory or a name that is enticing to you, like, that's the point of it being there. Like, there is there is something that's so strange that we have this assumption that like people won't build their own vocabulary. It's like, oh, read the word and move past the word because you have to finish the book. No, read the word, learn the word, understand the word, and then move forward. Because the context is not just what's on the page. The context is this universe that we're living within. And I think that being able to do that on your own terms is so important. Like, I'd rather people understand what they're seeing, and maybe get lost on that journey and have a really fulfilling engagement than finish the book. Like, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And y'all give people that permission in the introduction. You specifically say, get out your phones, get out your Google machines, let's do it. Okay. For people like me who just love this book, what are some other books that you might recommend to them?
Ooh, wow.
And they don't have to be the same like book. They can just be in conversation with things that you think spark some sort of intersection.
I was going to suggest Disability Visibility by Alice Wong, because I think the conversation we have between Carolyn Lazard and Sairi Johnson-Drell, did I get that name right, Kimberly?
Sarai,
thank you. That is a conversation I return to regularly, and it's one of the most important in the book to me, and I think it really opened my eyes to a world of scholarship and teachings and readings that I hadn't really been exposed to in the way that felt like ripe for expansion. And so that was a book that conversation led me to that book. And that's been one that's incredible. I also think the whole Soulfire Farm book is really important to read. And Leah Pedeman, who's one of our contributors, and, you know, that book, the essay that she contributed is excerpted from the book, and it's just called Black to the Land. But within that entire book, their growing schedules, you know, there's like information about like properly caring for soil, which is just really remarkable to read. Like, I just didn't know that much went into food production. And I mean, I might become a farmer. I don't fucking know what the future holds, but I think just having a newfound appreciation for how much work goes into my tasty ass arugula salad that I fucking love. You know what I mean? Like, it just made me a better person. So those are the two that are coming up for me immediately, but I'll keep thinking.
Yeah, I would say Bridget Cumbo's Exhibiting Blackness is a book that I consistently go back to because she gives this really beautiful history of exhibition of Black artists from the 1920s to, I guess, the book's publication, which I think was in the early 2000s. And then also the New Negro, but that's also just because I was just using those recently for research, but they really are such like incredible texts, especially in relationship to Black art. And Black creativity and Black flourishing. And I think the New Negro as this like incredible compendium across medium is so valuable, important.
If you all received any pushback on this book once it was released, what was it? And did you agree with it? Did it make you think or reflect about the book in any way? Or was it not even worth your time?
I mean, it's all mostly worth our time, you know, to be honest. I mean, that's also just me as someone who's been in media for so long, where I'm like, you know, it's always interesting to see what rankles people. And then what you do with it is a different conversation, but it's always interesting to get that biofeedback. I don't know. I was actually looking at our Amazon reviews recently and our Goodreads, and the biggest issue that people seem to have is the book taking a long time to get where it needs to go, which I just feel like, I mean, I guess if those are our biggest problems right now, like, shout out to the USPS working as hard as they can to get these books out. But I haven't really seen anything that, I'm just taking a minute to really scan. I really haven't seen anything that's felt anything yet, knock on wood, that would amount to pushback. I don't know, Kimberly, what your experience has been though.
Yeah, so far so good, knock on wood. I'm always down to entertain and have rigorous conversation. I think there's definitely things that if I were reviewing it, I could point to, but I won't tell on ourselves. But I think so far we've just really been having incredible connections with people who have interacted with the book, which is what you really hope for. And I think that's enough. I think oftentimes it's, and this isn't, I know this, Tracy, I know this isn't your intention, but it's been something that's come up for me in my personal journey, especially sharing Black artists, where people are like, oh, well, you know, how much flack have you gotten? And I'm like, no, like it's coming from a generous space. It's coming with good intention. And, you know, at worst, you can't include everyone all the time, but really at base, it's coming from such a, like we truly sat down together to make something that we hope could be a companion to others. We truly sat down together to do our very best to take a portrait of what's going on right now as it relates to Black culture as we see it at the scale that we could wrap our arms around. And so there's, of course, room for what people want to see or all those other things or whatever. But so far, it's been received as that gesture. And that, I think, is one of the great gifts of this time. And so I'm very thankful, especially for all the reviewers who have really sat with it and have come back with just like really, like, especially too, like, of different walks of life and different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, coming back and saying, oh, we see why this is important. And I think that that's a really tremendous gift.
I was just going to add, it's also worth shouting out that so many of the reviewers and interviewers have been Black women or Black people, you know, and like, I just can't help but think if this book had come out when it was supposed to come out like 3 years ago, I don't know if that would have been the case. You know, like, we really are seeing this really thoughtful reception and just this diligence and just caretaking with the material, you know, like, people are really sitting with it. And I feel super grateful for that. I mean, I was amazed that our Times review was like on point, because there are just so many moments that you can point to when, you know, an incredible piece of Black art or Black, you know, a Black collection or a book comes out and it just, the reviewers can't engage with it or they miss the point entirely. And that just has not been our experience. And that is such a gift. Like that's something I'm still marveling at, you know, and I'm just coming from someone who remembers being the only Black person in a room, a tech briefing or a press briefing, you know, it's like, that just isn't happening here. And that feels so incredible.
That's so good. I'm so glad that that's been both of your experience. I just have one more question for you. But before I do it, I have to say this out loud because I want to document this. Jenna, when I set out to make this podcast, I wrote down a list of people that I dreamed of would come on the podcast. And you were one of those people. So this is a really special moment. I cried when they told me that I was going to be able to talk to you guys. So thank you for being here. It's just like I'm getting emotional, but it really is exciting to me. Enough about me. Last question for both of you. If you could have one person, dead or alive, read this book, who would you want it to be?
Whoa. Oh man. That's a real one. Oh my gosh.
Today.
Oh my God. My instinct was like Tony because we took so much inspiration.
I was going to say, like, there's only one answer.
There's only one answer. But how would she feel about it? We'll never know. But
I mean, it's the two Tonys. Like, I want to, in some section of The Great Beyond, see Toni Cade Bambara and Toni Morrison just like having a casual chat about it. You know, like I'm curious what they would say. I would have loved to have them on the editorial team. If we would have that great honor. But yeah, I mean, we were so informed by their work and their cataloging of Black life that, I mean, I can't think of, I mean, there's so many other people, of course, but I think, you know, today.
I love it. Everyone at home, the book is Black Futures, edited by Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham, our guest today. You can get it anywhere you get your books, but I encourage you to get it from a Black-owned bookstore in your community if possible. Also, everything we talked about today is in the show notes. So anything that you were like, who was that artist? What was that? There's a link to it in the show notes for you. Jenna and Kimberly, thank you both so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us. What a great honor. We really, really appreciate the time.
Yes, same. And thanks for geeking out on Jenna. I always love when that happens. She's our star.
I'm shy. I'm like, but it's received.
I have to also say, Kimberly, you were very great on Z-Way's show. I watched it and I was like, because I didn't know much about you. And then I saw that and I was like, oh, I love her. I'm going to have to become a stalker of her as well. This is very exciting that they have a book coming together. So there's also much Kimberly love here too. You just were so good on that. Oh my God.
Thank
just
you.
So sharp.
And thanks to Z-Way for being in Black Futures.
I know. Full circle.
We love Z-Way.
So good. Well, thank you all. And everyone else, we will see you in the stacks. Thank you so much to Jenna and Kimberly for being our guests. Thank you also to Maria Breckel and Courtney Mocklow for helping coordinate this interview. Remember, the Stacks Book Club discussion at the Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans will be on January 27th with guest Disha Vilya. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Stacks wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a rating and a review. For more from The Stacks, follow us on social media at The Stacks Pod on Instagram and at The Stacks Pod _ on Twitter. And check out our website, thestackspodcast.com. Sebastian Alcala is our sound editor and producer. Our graphic designer is Robin McCrite, and our theme music is from Tegirigis. The Stacks is created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas.